Hey,
Bill,
here?
I'm here.
I knew you would be.
How you doing, brother?
How are you?
Good to be back in LA with you. Different
Look,
spot.
I get the bro hug.
Yeah, you
huh?
do. Yeah, you know.
I brought you something from my garden.
Oh, that's nice.
Nice.
It does look nice. Yeah.
Have you ever seen a zucchini that big? I think it's a little better than nice.
It's substantial. It's substantial. Yeah.
Well, Jesus Christ.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
You know, I was talking to quite such a stud that you find this merely substantial.
Oh, that's good. No,
I mean, are you kidding? Have you just been at the Iowa State Fair or something?
I've been hanging out there a lot. Yeah.
Okay. Well, don't they have like biggest vegetable
I think
prizes? Wouldn't this?
I think you got to go there and compete. Have you ever been to Iowa?
No, I don't want to go there. I just want you to admit that this is like.
It's very impressive.
Thank
it's very
you.
impressive. Yeah. Yeah. It's very
Well, it's
impressive.
yours because
thank
I
you.
heard you hadn't eaten.
Zucchini. I'm gonna take it with me.
No.
I'm gonna take it with me.
Well, they said you were hungry
Yeah. Well, you know, I'll
because you're like on the go
all the time, man. Yeah.
See, this is what's
we're having
great.
fun, but
This is what's so advantageous about running for president when you're 38. Because I remember 38. And I still run around the country, but I couldn't do it like that now. I mean, you really.
But you've been through that phase. You know what it's like a little
absolutely,
bit.
and you can just run your body ragged 24/7. Especially, I'm sure you don't drink, or I mean, you're
not a, you know, try to not have too many vices. Yeah.
But do you think it should be legal nationally?
I think that we should align the federal law with the state law. I think it undermines the rule of law that we
So
have.
that means yes.
Yeah, it means yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because it's so silly now.
It's a joke. It's a farce.
It's a joke that I have to look up when I'm going to a state. And by the way, I don't even do it anymore because I figure if they're going to get me in Oklahoma for having this with me, they'll be the ones who are embarrassed, not me.
Well, also, here's the thing, though, is when you have different standards of law, like when you have that look the other way and sweep it under the rug, that's when you actually get an unfair state that can target people for saying the wrong thing, thinking the wrong thing. Oh, I don't like what you did here.
Right.
I got to throw the statute book at you, and then we're going to do something where we otherwise don't charge
And
it.
historically,
That's what they do.
racism
Historically.
hid behind states' rights.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah,
this
of
was
course.
this was part of our past.
Right.
And today, I think
Right.
political discrimination, I think, is the new equivalent of unfairness in the law that we've seen for racism in maybe decades and centuries past.
Well, I will say this, where I think we're fairly in agreement on. I keep saying my mantra is, let's live in the year we're living in.
Yeah.
Because so many people seem to, on the left, this is a left thing, they seem to want to insist on having our deplorable past permanently stand in for our much improved present, which doesn't mean there isn't work to be done. There certainly are still racists in America and racism, but I feel like we are very often not treating it like, oh, this is 2023 now, and this is where we are. This is the work that has to be done, but let's not be chasing these phantoms of racism that aren't the parts that exist anymore.
Yeah, and I think that we can celebrate that.
Yeah, we should.
I think that we should celebrate
Progressives
that,
should.
right? I think that we all should. We are all, I mean, in some ways, I am pro-progress, right? Does that make me a progressive, a conservative? I don't know what those labels are, but I'm pro-progress. And so, I think that the fact that what I tell some people, often friends on the left is, have we been hypocritical for most of our national history? Yes, we have. But our worst hypocrisies.
Hypocritical, you mean like all men are created equal?
Yeah, that we don't live up. We have, and the point I was getting to is those hypocrisies are our best evidence that we have ideals at all, right? Nobody calls Iran a hypocrite.
That's a great point.
Nobody calls China a hypocrite. You can't call them a hypocrite because to be a hypocrite, you had to have the ideals in the first place. Right. So then now you have ideals. Now, are we a nation of gods or are we a nation of men? We're a nation of human beings, okay?
Right.
Human beings are by definition flawed. So if you have a nation built on ideals and it's comprised of human beings and not angels, then you will fall short of those ideals. It's just like definitionally what happens. No, but at least we have ideals.
Right.
That's what my
and also that we do improve.
Yeah.
That, this is what's so annoying about, I've done many editorials about this, just like again, just live in the year we're living in and stop like going after Columbus and like, yes, people were atrocious back then. He committed atrocities.
I mean, there are elements of Columbus that we ought to admire and still celebrate
Well,
today.
we wouldn't be here. Well, I guess we would. Somebody would have found
Somebody
it.
would have, but
Found it eventually. It's so
But
big.
it's the spirit of exploration, the spirit of being the unafraid, right? That's what we take on.
To have the balls to get into 3 little wooden ships that are probably the size of this room
And to just go.
when you didn't know what was on the other
Literally,
side.
well, you thought India was on the other side, is what you thought.
But it was a theory.
You had no idea. Yeah.
Everybody
Could've
else said,
fallen off.
they said, you will fall off the edge of the world.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. But, the reason they did it was because, before when the trade had to go through the Middle East, if you wanted to trade with China, like Marco Polo, you had to go through the Middle East, and it's called the Middle because they were literally middlemen. Like all the trade went through.
Totally.
And Columbus basically said, I would rather fall off the edge of the world than have to deal with those people.
And the deserts and
getting my
the
silk
conditions.
through one more day.
I mean, these guys were the pioneers, the explorers, and
Well,
even the founding fathers had that spirit. Like, take another guy who has that spirit, Thomas Jefferson. Right? You have this historical view of Columbus.
he's bad. He's
evil. He had slaves.
He was fucking one of them.
Yeah, more than one, I think, is actually the
Really?
the accurate truth. But the reality is, he's also a guy. So people say I'm young running for president. I'm 38. You know how old he was when he wrote the Declaration of Independence?
12.
33.
Oh,
Yeah, split the difference.
that was close.
Yeah, but give him credit.
Well, yes, you're
And
right.
he's writing the Declaration of Independence, and he decides that he needs a swivel chair. And I feel like I could use a swivel chair right now, but he decides he needs a swivel chair. So he invented it.
Who did?
Thomas Jefferson.
Invented the swivel chair?
Yes.
I thought Franklin was the inventor.
Well, Franklin was also an inventor. He invented the Franklin stove. He invented the bifocal spectacles. Franklin's case, he actually invented one of the earliest remedies for the common cold. So all of these guys, they weren't like the kinds who said, oh no, you're not an expert. You're not trained in that. They just said, we're going to do it. We're going to figure it out.
What remedy?
And we're going to do it.
What's the cold remedy?
It was something that, it was like a home brew, but it worked.
And it still works?
I think there have been, I will say this. There has not been a good, like for all the things the pharmaceutical industry has created, a cure for the common cold is not on the list.
Right. And
So we haven't gotten further along than Benjamin Franklin did.
And the shit that the pharmaceutical companies sell to treat it, the NyQuil.
It was far worse for you than what Benjamin Franklin came up with.
And probably in the long run worse for the cold,
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
it might treat immediate symptoms a little bit or something, but I mean, some of that stuff. And look,
It's designed to knock you out so you forget about it.
I hate to do anything like that, but like the one symptom I had when I had COVID was I had a stuffy nose for a couple of nights. That was really
Are you
it.
stuffy right now?
No.
Okay.
Why? Do I sound it?
You sound a little bit, yeah.
Well, I've got that 24-hour COVID. No problem. No. No. So I did reach for the nasal spray because it was just easier to sleep if I cleared my passages. But I didn't know that about Benjamin Franklin, huh?
Franklin and Thomas Jefferson.
And well, Jefferson, I mean, Franklin I kind of knew, but I didn't know about the cold remedy. Jefferson, I did. I guess they were all, well, see,
And the Franklin stove is named after Benjamin Franklin.
Back then there was something called the Renaissance man.
Yes.
And a Renaissance man meant you did everything. That's
and
why
we have
that's
lost
not.
that.
Of course,
So I'm into that.
You're a Renaissance man.
I wouldn't say I wouldn't call myself a Renaissance man, but I respect the ideal, and yes, I do have diverse
You aspire
interests.
to that, yes.
Yeah, and I aspire to be good
Right.
at different things, right?
Like
I'm not some box
Right.
that you check in some sort of ordered society. I'm me, and I will have
No, a
multiple
Renaissance
different pursuits.
man, could speak many languages.
Yeah.
He knew archery. He knew
good at
horsemanship.
sports, could be the same guy who plays music,
Absolutely.
piano.
Music, sword fighting, like
So I try to do this in the campaign trail. It sort of gets under my teams, makes them nervous sometimes. But we'll play the piano. I play college kids in tennis when I travel across the country. We'll get the best college players in the local college tennis team, hit with them. I rap to Eminem at the Iowa State Fair. Made some
I
people
saw
upset.
that. Don't do that again.
Oh, why not?
Because it didn't turn out well for Kendall Roy on Succession. When
I didn't get to that part of it.
Oh, well, he rapped at his father's birthday party. And
Oh, really?
guys who are not rappers rapping, it's just, I'm telling you, It's just as a friend.
But you know, my view, Bill, is I kind of do what I feel like doing at that moment.
Yeah, that's
so
the problem.
That's
You
kind of
can't
my,
always.
my
Right, I know,
general-
but when
and that's
people.
the spirit of our Renaissance.
Okay, but I don't want
Want to invent the
president.
swivel chair? I'll invent the swivel chair. That's kind of where I'm at.
The idea of president, I do what I want at whatever moment, is not like an appealing thing. I see why your team is trying to
they're
take
kinda
you away.
nervous.
Just the rapping. Tennis is great, but
yeah,
not,
well, tennis is more fun anyway. So that's where I'm at on that.
right.
But my point is, I think we have lost that spirit, right? Our inner animal spirit as a country and the people who run it, it has been caged. It's been tamed. It's been domesticated by this culture that celebrates vulnerability, victimhood, and penalizes the pursuit of excellence and being free. And my view is, I think it's a mentality that now we're doing well in the polls. When I was at 0.0%, I said the same thing. I'd rather just tell people of this country who I am and what I stand for. And if they want to vote for me, fine.
Oh yeah, you definitely.
And if they don't, then don't. I will be very comfortable with that decision.
Well, I mean,
but I wish I would wish for more politicians to step up and embrace that spirit.
Right, but like whatever you're getting, 7%. No one's taking that seriously like someone with 7%. Now, could you be president? Yes, things could change. But this is the time when you're at 7. I've seen this before with politicians, when you can say anything because no one's paying that much of attention. And it's not like, well, he's not going to, this guy's not going to be president. I know he's a kook who thinks we should get rid of the F.B.I. and the I.R.S., which is kooky.
So you've studied it's not kooky, actually. I'll explain to you why it's not kooky.
It's the F.B.I.?
Yeah, let me explain that to you
Who's
right
going
now.
to collect taxes and catch kidnappers? You?
So let's talk F.B.I., actually. You want to talk F.B.I.?
Oh, geez. Yes, please.
I'm impressed, Bill. You've been reading the platform.
I do this for a living.
This
Hello,
is
you've
good.
been on my show,
This is
right?
good. Yeah, but
you know who I am?
Yeah, no, I know.
I'm up on political stuff.
Yeah. You're up into political stuff, but this is getting into the details. So shutting down the FBI.
Well, that's a pretty big detail. Get rid of the FBI?
Yeah, I would shut it down, and I'll tell you why.
Oh, Jesus.
You ready to have an open? You're an open-minded guy.
I'm listening.
I know you. You will listen. So that's why I'm bothering with this, right? By the way, I have a book recommendation for you before I get to it. G-Man, Government Man. It's the history of the FBI. J. Edgar Hoover's History of the FBI. You read that book, that will already open your heart and mind to the argument I'm about to make.
I'm already reading a book about cross-dressers, so I can't.
Okay, well,
no, I'm kidding,
this can come next,
no.
Okay,
go ahead.
Cross-dressers are important too. But the gist is this. The FBI is a failed institution. It is at once politicized, corrupt, and has been, in many ways, designed to be corrupt. J. Edgar Hoover designed it that way. The same FBI that threatened Martin Luther King with suicide, blackmailing him over incorrectly collected tapes, is now targeting its domestic terrorists for people who show up at concerned parents of school board meetings. So in some ways, this was built in by design.
That's coming from the FBI?
Yeah, it's coming from the FBI. Now, here's an answer to this, okay? At the local level, you've got local cops and you've got local prosecutors. You don't have a separate bureaucracy sitting in between. Well, now let's talk about the federal level. You've got the U.S. Marshals, and then you got the DOJ. The DOJ has its issues, but I think the president can reform that through good appointments. You don't need the separate bureaucracy sitting in between. So I'll walk you through the math because I know you like details for this to be credible.
Well, certainly for this issue.
Yeah, for this issue, right? Because you brought it up. 35,000 employees at the FBI. 20,000 of them report into work at the J. Edgar Hoover building. Still, they celebrate his legacy. The J. Edgar Hoover building of the FBI they walk into. That's Washington. The bureaucratic rot. That's in D.C.
So you're saying 20,000 of the 35,000 FBI men work in Washington in the same, they fit 20,000 people in one building?
I mean, it's a giant building.
20,000 people? In that
I don't know how many of them show up in the post-COVID era for Zoom or whatever, and they have field offices.
Well, that is a big building.
But I'm saying are in back office functions. 15,000 of them are frontline agents. These are good people doing investigative work on drug crimes or sex trafficking or whatever it may be. They're not specialized at the FBI. So I've offered, if I may say it myself, unprecedented detail on how to get this done. Those 15,000 move some of them to the U.S. Marshals, which have been far more effective at fighting child trafficking rings than the FBI. Move some of them to the DEA, which has been far more effective on the front lines of the fentanyl epidemic than has been the FBI.
If you're going to get rid of an agency, why don't you get rid of that one? The DEA.
Well, actually, the investigative crime, I mean, just we have laws in this country, so you could debate whether you like the laws or not. But I'm saying as long as you have the laws, we're talking about effectiveness here. And my point is the FBI is broken. Take financial crimes.
So you're saying the 20,000 people who work in Washington, they are all superfluous?
I can't tell you that every one of them to the last T is, but I've got 4 years to a first term. I got to move quickly.
Yeah, I think you just.
And so I say chop it off, shut down the FBI,
Okay, so
move them to the U.S. Marshals, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network at the U.S. Treasury, to the Secret Service, which handles some financial crime as well, and then to the DEA.
Okay,
That's the answer.
so here's something the FBI was involved with. So I'm asking who would handle this.
Yes.
Say an ally country like Australia.
Yep.
Has a tip, and we trust that they are an ally and the person is credible.
Yep.
And he has been talking to someone who got drunk in a bar and said he had information about how a foreign country, Russia, was trying to infiltrate our election. And he was placed in this candidate's operation. He was an operative for the person running for president. So the Australian diplomat tells the FBI. Do you think that's right?
Well, I think we could separately talk about the circumstances of that particular case. But you're saying somebody gets a tip.
Well, that's how the Trump-Russia investigation happened.
Which, you could argue this in multiple ways, Bill.
Well, what I'm arguing is this.
You could say that actually is part of the corruption that led to an
but what I'm arguing is this,
existed.
because this is what happened.
Yeah.
An Australian diplomat, somebody we trusted, said this guy, it was George Papadopoulos, I think was his name, was a little drunk one night, and he was telling him about how much the Trump campaign team was coordinating with the Russian government. Now, we can argue the rest of the night about what happened after that. Of course, they did. But should that not be investigated by the FBI? And if not the FBI, I don't see how the federal marshals or who the Texas Rangers are going to handle that one.
I actually think U.S. Marshals would be a fine place if you move people to that
Really?
division. As a side, I'm going to resist the temptation to go down the rabbit hole of debating something that's like a dead horse that we needn't beat for what was, I believe, a deeply flawed Russia collusion narrative that went nowhere. But let's just talk about something like it is your question for the purpose of reorganizing the FBI.
We have facts that are, at least fact, we have the reports of 2 Republicans, right? We had the John Durham report, right?
We have a Durham report, yep.
And what was the one before that?
The Durham report was about the FBI's.
Horowitz.
Yeah.
They were both about the investigation of the investigation.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
The FBI opened this investigation into whether Trump was too involved with Russia, let's just put it that way, based on this Australian tip. And of course, it turned out he was. His campaign manager was sharing polling data with a guy in the GRU.
But you know who else was too involved with Russia? Was the Hillary Clinton campaign.
That's ridiculous.
It was via the British guy Christopher Steele with the Russian disinformation operative getting the golden shower story planted down, used as opposition party research.
That's a red
to get
herring,
a FISA.
and
I'm just saying
it.
Both parties.
Okay.
Politics apparently is far dirtier than I ever imagined in both political parties. And I just don't think it was good for the country, Bill, that we had that impeachment inquiry for the first 2 years.
Let's go back to what we can actually talk about for real.
Yeah, because this is just like ancient stuff.
No. Because the 2 reports.
Okay.
The Durham report and they both said the same thing. And these are Republicans. At least Durham is.
To me, I could care less about the partisan distinctions.
Well, everybody else cares about it. So let's not pretend you don't care.
Well, the reason I don't care because there's a lot of I think about it as whether or not you're part of the managerial class or whether you're actually being accountable.
Well, that's important too, but also...
And that exists in the Republican Party and the Democrat Party alike.
But we are crazy partisan right now, and people only stick with their team, even when they know better.
I tell grassroots conservative audiences across this country, even when I go to places like Iowa, and this will surprise some people, I think it's unique to now. I tell hard conservative audiences that I could care less for the Republican Party. I really could. And I go places like south side of Chicago.
That's not brave. That's how Trump got elected.
Well, I think here's something that's a little bit...
The Republican Party...
I'm not claiming to be brave. I'm just claiming to be where the country is right now. The country does not care as much for those partisan distinctions as the observers of politics would think. I went to the south side of Chicago. I went to Kensington in the inner city of Philadelphia. Now, those are places where Trump didn't go or where other Republicans don't go.
Good for you.
Well, the thing that I found is that here's what I will say. I've probably done hundreds of campaign events. I have not been in a room that was more hard line on two things, closing the southern border and ending the war in Ukraine, than an audience of 200, mostly 99% of them black Democrats in supposedly hardcore left.
Doesn't mean they're right.
Inner city of Chicago, which is interesting.
Doesn't mean they're right or it's not the right thing to do to keep funding the Ukrainian war.
We can come to that in a second, but my point was
It may
a different
not
one,
be.
which is that the partisan boundaries on two of the most important issues of our time, probably the most important foreign policy question right now, is what we do with the war in Ukraine. And a fundamental issue relating to our southern border, because they're turning South Shore High School into an encampment for migrants. It's a fascinating finding that no Republican has showed up there. Now, they differed from me drastically, and we had at it. And one woman walked out and left when I'm against racial reparations. And so we have real disagreements. But the most, and I'm not exaggerating this, the most vehement agreement for militarizing the southern border and taking $200 billion to aid Ukraine for a community that says, wait a minute, A, this migrant's getting $7,000 per person per month in South Shore High School. B, we're sending $200 billion to some other country halfway around the world. What about me? And there are deep echoes of that in the non-establishment wing of the Republican Party as well, which is why I come back to the fact that, agree or not with the individual policy positions, I just don't think that right now, the moment we live in, R versus D captures it, which is inspiring, actually, as a possibility.
I wish you were right. I don't think you are about that. Not that everything you said there was wrong. I mean, it's important stuff. I mean, it's funny, you're such a good talker and you're such a likable guy. I think you really could go far. I mean, I must say, you're one of the few guys who I find both disarming and alarming.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill. That is a compliment.
No, I mean it. No, I mean, look, you're attractive looking, you're young. The country is, first of all, here's a big advantage you have. Biden and Trump, people hate this matchup, and they hate that there's two geriatrics. So you're like the most not that.
They're both over twice my age, literally. Yeah.
Right, and you've got color in your face that's not either orange or ghostly.
But
these are all.
There are older people who can be sharp, and there are younger people who have lost their wits. But I think I would like to think, and I think so far we're having fun in this, bringing a young spirit to running the country. Even when I think about the cabinet, this is neither here nor there, but when I was running my companies, one of my philosophies was, even in the industries that I was in, right? So the first industry was the biotech industry. The median age at our company for the biotech industry was young in terms of people who work there. And for me, at least, and this is the way I would run the federal government, it might be different for other people in the way they built their companies, but for me, I tend to find that people whose peak in their career is still yet ahead of them. I'm not going to say young or old, because there could be people who are advanced in years whose peak is still ahead of them.
Yeah.
But somebody, whoever it is their peak is ahead of them, versus somebody who actually has a great resume. But by definition, if you have a great resume, it means you've accomplished great things. By definition, if you've accomplished great things for many people, that means that chances are your peak might be behind you and you're obsessed with talking about that. Boy, do we accomplish a lot more with people whose peak is still ahead of them. So my campaign, fully staffed by young people, my campaign manager is younger than me. Talk about the way I've built my companies. So for the federal government, when I think about my cabinet,
have some older
we're going to do the same. A few, of course.
Every society.
But it will lean young. It will skew young.
You're from an ancient culture that seemed to understand, like most cultures in the world, the village elders.
Yes.
Confucianism in China, like. Most countries revere the elders for their wisdom. It's true. You have a great amount of energy at 38. You're super smart, but I do see something that alarms me, truly.
Fair enough.
Because you don't have the wisdom about certain issues. I don't think you think Trump lost the election.
Well, I think that big tech interfered. You and I have talked about this like a year ago.
What the fuck does that matter?
I want to say
who got the most. Of course, big tech interfered. They interfered for Trump. That was all about Fox News being.
It's the largest illegal campaign contribution in human history.
Okay, but who actually got more votes?
Biden got, literally in terms of the number of votes that were counted.
And Biden won the states that.
I have seen no evidence to suggest
there none. That's why you haven't seen it. And so Biden won the Electoral College.
I want to come back.
Wait, just answer this. No, you can't come back. You can't play politician.
Well, I want to come back to it after we're done with this.
Did Biden win the amount of electoral votes that they said he won, and therefore is the legitimate president?
I think the reason he's not legitimate.
Not
There's
the
two
right
reasons.
answer.
No, the reason the election was rigged
Now
was big tech. That's really the answer, Bill. And I'm
It
data
doesn't
driven.
matter.
It
Big
does
tech
matter,
is
though.
always yes. It does matter.
Here's what matters.
But we can't. At the moment, it's happened.
I accept Biden's the duly elected president of the United States. I said it at the time, and I said it now.
Everybody does bad things during campaigns, including using big tech. What matters is then who got the most votes. We have to start with somewhere that's real. That's what's real. Who won those states that puts him in the White House? And you cannot just say to me, yes, Biden won the election. Because
Yes. Well, I said that at the time. I
So
said it at the time,
Biden
and I
won
said
the
it ever
election.
since.
'Cause I
Biden
can't
had the
see-
most votes in the election. Biden had the most
can't
votes.
say
in the election.
those words. It's like you're a husband who can't say.
No, Biden had. But the reason is, Bill. I mean, there's good data on this. We were systematically suppressed. The Hunter Biden bribery story, which is relevant today,
That's what
on the eve of an election where most people who are independent said, many people who are independent, enough to change the outcome of the election, said they would have changed their vote had they had access to that information. It's the greatest form of election interference in human history.
No,
That's actually the fact.
That would be Russia. If you're listening, please find Hillary's emails and then release them on WikiLeaks. That was the biggest breach. I mean, you can't really believe.
You're talking about James Comey and his statements before the 2016 election.
I'm talking about Trump. Trump said that. I don't need James Comey. Trump said, Russia, if you're listening. You don't remember that moment?
I mean,
you don't remember that?
I don't particularly remember that moment, but I'm talking about large technology companies in this last election.
Okay.
I just think if we don't learn from that, Bill, we're destined to make the same mistakes again. But here's what I'll say.
I don't
That's an
believe
example
you
of
that,
what you'll call lack of wisdom.
Okay,
and we can agree to disagree on that.
You're running as like, I'm not the bullshitter guy like the other guys. And then you just told me you don't remember when Trump said, Russia,
I actually don't, but
it was a
go
giant moment
recount it
that's
for
been
me.
replayed a zillion times.
Back when I was in business and
you're, oh really? You were that tuned out from politics?
I mean, what Trump was saying on a given day in 2016.
Not a given day.
Really.
That was replayed a zillion times because he was impeached over this.
I think the impeachment, though, I can talk about. I mean, the impeachment was on a flawed basis. I mean, that's a hard reason. We now understand. But here's the problem right now. We are still spending, and this is why I'm in this race. We have spent literally 7 years now relitigating and rehashing that series of events that, whatever they are, is not going to change.
Well, yes,
and I think that's what's wrong in this election right now as well.
Well, that's the nature of justice. When people commit crimes, if they're not punished for it, then they tend to commit the crimes again. So the fact that we're still talking about it, yes, he's got
I think these indictments are deeply politicized. I think they're a bad idea for the future of the country.
Well, let's just talk about the one that matters, the one where he tried to overthrow the United States government. You don't think that?
You're talking about the third one from Jack Smith.
I'm talking about
the Jack Smith indictment.
Absolutely.
So I believe that of course, I would have made very different judgments than Trump made that day. But Trump expressing his view on the outcome of the election, even knowingly telling a lie, is not unconstitutional.
Great.
It's not a legal violation.
So
Alvarez is a case which 2012
but he didn't just,
famously said politicians can have a First Amendment right to lie. And Jack Smith's indictment acknowledges that, which is the interesting part about this.
Okay. But this is not what we're talking about. We're talking about things like putting up fake electors. That's not just words. They did that. A slate of fake electors. We're talking about a guy on tape saying, this is the one that came down the other day about Georgia, a guy on tape saying, I need you to find me 11,780 more votes. Now, that alone, if I just had that, wouldn't that be a case? I need you to find me, he's saying
and they didn't do it, right?
But I tried to rob a bank the other day and I didn't get the money.
What law? I mean, here's where I'm at. Not every bad judgment or every bad act is a crime.
Oh my God.
What law did that violate?
He's the president.
What law did that violate?
Probably the oath of office that he took when he would defend the United States.
That's not I mean, George Bush violated the oath of office.
What is more
when he sent troops to Iraq? This is why we vote people out. That's how elections work.
I know, but
so I think that's the fundamental difference in how we do things in the United States, where you're taking deeply held judgments that you disagree with. Great, go to the ballot box, vote. That's how we do things in the United States of America.
Which is exactly what he's on trial for. One of the counts is
I think it's
cheating people out of their vote.
The question is, what's best for the country at this point in time?
Well,
and I do not think that in the middle of an election.
Well, the first thing we can decide. I agree with you that.
And look at the timing of this indictment.
I agree with you that it may prove that we may look back on this and say, because the indictments only make Trump stronger. He's like a rapper. The more times he gets arrested, the more street cred he has. And I think, the idea that Republicans don't like him because they love that the porn stars, they love that he was fucking porn stars. They love to be fucking porn stars, Republicans, gay porn stars, but still.
I think, Bill, to really understand what's going on in the country, we have, first of all, right now, on one hand, the son of a U.S. president collecting multi-million-dollar bribes from foreign countries that president is now arguably making good on in different ways.
Oh, gosh.
And on the other hand, we have
yes, I mean, that's true.
A former president of the United States that currently, by the way, it would be a lot easier for me if Trump were eliminated, by the way. And some of the recent polls this week, I'm in second. Polling averages, I'm in third. It would be a lot easier for me if Trump were out of the way. I don't want to win this election by seeing a political opponent eliminated by the federal police state. I think that is a disastrous precedent to set in this country.
Unless he committed crimes that police
Bill,
should be apprehending him for.
So let's get, if you want to get into the details on this, let's get into the details. Let's talk about the Espionage Act, which he's being charged under. That is the most un-American law in our history.
Not in this.
It's been used to lock up anti-war activists.
Okay, I'm
hundreds
not sure that is what he's being tried under.
For the second indictment, it is the Espionage Act that he's charged under for the documents case. Taking the documents.
The documents. Okay, you switched the cards there.
With so many indictments. There's 4 of them at the exact same time. What's going on? It's not about the crime.
If it was up to me,
it's about eliminating the man.
I wish they hadn't brought the Stormy Daniels one. I wish they hadn't even brought he's guilty of all these things, of course. I wouldn't have brought the documents one.
He's not guilty of anything in the Stormy Daniels ones. You want to know why? You're a smart guy. Let me just explain this.
I don't care about that
Bill,
one. I never cared about that.
I know you don't care about that one, but it relates to the ones that followed because it's evidence that there's something else going on here. So you will agree with me on this one, okay? You say he's guilty of it. Well, let me just test you on this for a second, see how you feel. They said that the crime there was that he should have used campaign funds to pay hush money to the porn star. You know what? If he had used campaign funds to pay hush money, that actually would have been more of a crime than not doing it, right?
I did a whole thing on this.
Okay, so I missed that. I'm sorry.
I'm pre with you.
You're pre with me on it, so I didn't need to preach to the choir on it.
Right, no, exactly.
But the point is, if there's 4 of these separate things coming right at the same time, smack dab in the middle of an election.
Because it happened. It's like they made it up.
But Bill, I just told you they made this one up. They literally made this one up.
They certainly did not make up, excuse me, they certainly did not make up the idea that he tried every single possible way to steal that election. He tried it.
I was talking about the first one. They made that was literally made up indictment.
Well, I'm talking about the one that's important and you know what's important. He tried it through pressuring Mike Pence, who was doing something in a very ceremonial role to pretend that he could change the vote. The fake electors. He pressured the secretaries of state and the legislatures. They talked about bringing out the military. They talked about seizing voting machines. This country has done one thing that was more amazing than any other. They've done many amazing things, but to me, the jewel in our crown, the peaceful transference of power. So many countries cannot get this right.
Yes.
We were one of the few who could get it right. And one guy, your boyfriend Donald Trump, broke this and fucked it.
Don't give me the boyfriend stuff. Come on. I'm running against him in this race, okay?
I think you're running to be his vice president.
Well, I'm glad you smoked that view out. I've already said, and I'll say it again, I'm not going to work for any administration.
So you would say no to it?
Yeah, I would say no.
You would say no to the vice presidency if Donald Trump offered it to you?
I don't do well in a number 2 role. I just don't.
To start, you're 38.
I don't do well I haven't been in a number 2 role in a long time. I think there's a lot of ways to change this country.
Wow.
And each person has to look in the mirror and ask themselves, how do you have the maximal impact you can? So I do it through the private sector. I've written 3 books in the last 2 years. I've started businesses. That's what I would
only go right to the top or...
Well, to me, it's not a hierarchy. It's not about a top.
Well, it is.
It's about where am I going to have the most impact?
You will literally not be the second most powerful person in the world.
If power were my currency and probability adjusting my power calculus, yeah, of course you would take it. But if the question is actually how am I using my God-given talents to have a maximal positive impact on a country that has given me so much, being in that vice president role wouldn't be it.
Friday, September 1st, I'll be at the ACL Live at the Moody Theater in Austin, Texas. Saturday, September 2nd at the Texas Trust CU Theater in Grand Prairie. That's between Dallas and Fort Worth. I looked on the map. And Friday, September 15th and Saturday the 16th at the David Copperfield Theater at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. Do you like true crime? Check out the new season of Hot and Deadly, a true crime podcast from ID about murder and betrayal. These episodes feature direct audio from ID's all-American true crime shows, Swamp Murders, Highway to Hell, and Southern Fried Homicide. You'll hear from investigators and family members close to these cases and learn about some shocking stories, like how a bank president was found at the bottom of a swamp and what happened when a former prom teen went missing. You can also listen to all of Season 1 now. It's a lot of true crime and all available to listen to today. Listen to Hot and Deadly wherever you get your podcasts. I mean, that's the part I love about you. You know, it's like I agree. And I find it just heartening when I see somebody who, like, I mean, your parents weren't even born in this country, right?
No.
I mean, this is,
They came with no money to this country.
I'll say something, you'll probably agree with this. Obama, when he ran, like, and when he was in office, sounded more like your rival from South Carolina, Tim Scott.
Yeah, he did a little bit, actually.
Well, I mean, it was more
aspirational.
Aspirational,
Yes.
and like not discounting racism, but not making it the number one thing and like everything is about that.
Yes.
That was Obama, and that seems like Tim Scott today.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of similarities in that sense between the two of them. Absolutely. Aspirational for the country. My view is the American dream is here's where I'm a little different than
But
Tim
his
Scott.
big line was, my story is not possible in any other country. Obama
Yes.
used to say that.
That was his
Remember
line.
that one?
I do remember that one.
Okay, that
and
one.
it stuck
yeah.
with me.
All right. So, I mean.
And I think there's a deep truth to that. He doesn't say that anymore, interestingly.
That's what I'm
Washington, D.C.
saying.
changed it.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
When people say, Bill, you've gotten more conservative, I'm saying, no, they changed, not me. I loved that.
You're allowed to change too. I mean, you're a human being.
I am, and I do. I always
Yeah.
change with new information. And sometimes I have changed. But basically, I've just been working on a book of all our old editorials. So I read every one going back to 2003. And it was a great way to like discover, like, archaeology-wise, myself. And I'm like,
I love that, actually.
And yeah, I loved it too. And you know, the first 10, 15 years of real time, it was much more one-sided, making fun of the Republicans because the left gave me nothing. Obama was a disaster for comedians. He was perfect in every possible way. I mean, there was nothing you could. And
You're not basically that different, but I see where you're coming from.
Well, it drove the Republicans nuts.
From a left-wing perspective, I understand
his
where you're coming
personal life. The fact that no corruption, and they were looking for it. The fact that Obamacare was like paid for, things Republicans used to care about, paying for things. Their big program was, now it's just anybody writes a check for anything, both sides. The Republicans are just the hypocrites because they pretend that they're the fiscally
Well, the way I look at it,
responsible.
that's why I don't talk about Republicans and Democrats, like I said. I think they're
But you're
far
running as a-
more
right.
on the same party than they are not.
But
We live
if
in a
you-
two-party
but
system,
if
so you got to use ballot access to get on a ballot.
And that's your team. You can't alienate them. You're going to have to. I know you only want to be number one. And
I want to
everything.
unite the entire country. I want to unite the entire country. And I think there's
Well,
two
you
theories.
can't.
Well, Bill, I'm hopeful that we can. I think but I
I'll
share
give
your,
you that one, bro.
Yeah, but here's what I would say is like 20 years from now, I don't think we can. I think we're in a window where we have a shot at getting this done, on actually not celebrating our diversity, but actually finding a common thread that all of us still share as Americans. I think it exists.
Can I give you some campaign advice?
Yeah.
You're such a personable guy. You're so smart, and the energy is amazing. But unless you soften on Trump, at least half the country that knows that he's an obnoxious criminal, they're never going to accept you as the guy who can unite us. I can't accept you as that.
Take like a Chris
And I'm
Christie
somebody
figure who's
who-
in this.
I'm
versus
somebody
me.
who is like.
It's in a different place. I'm not motivated by vengeance and grievance.
Do you know how much shit I get from the left? A lot.
I know you do.
Yes.
I know you do.
Because
And
I
that's why
don't-
I'm here, and I
because
respect you.
Thank you.
Because you can
And I
actually
respect-
speak to, in some ways, your own tribe.
It's like my
Right?
thing is, if you expect me to get on the crazy train with you.
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't, then I lose my liberal card. Fuck you. You're changing what liberalism, not me. So, I'm a guy who could be your like biggest supporter kind of guy, right? Because I understand your critiques of the left, and a lot of them are valid, not all of them. But that is a albatross around your neck. The inability to call Trump, and just the most fundamental thing about America, once again, not to beat a dead horse, but the peaceful transference of power. One guy said, finally, no, I'm just not going to say it. There is no possible scenario. You should read the transcript of what he was saying to the person in Raffensperger in Georgia, the one he's just on trial for now. Now we know about the I need you to find 11,000 votes line. The one that I found so chilling at the beginning, he says right away, he said, if you saw the lines, I just saw the lines of the people waiting to see me, and there's no possible way I could have lost Georgia. This is a guy who thinks he couldn't lose the state because the lines at his event. This is like me saying, I'm going to be at the MGM Grand September 16th and 17th. That's true. And like I could go outside after the show, and I saw the lines to see my show, and there's no way I'm not the biggest act in Las Vegas.
Bill, can I just make an observation?
He's crazy.
Can I make an observation?
He's stupid and crazy.
I got to make an observation here.
You got to decouple.
Well,
from Donald Trump. That's the path.
I am running as my own man in this race to lead us to something. And here's the thing, and this is not specific to Trump, but everyone in this race running is included in this when I say this. The Republican Party for a long time has been a party that has been running from something. Okay, here are all the evil things and we're running from them. I think I am the only person in this race who is actually trying to lead us to something. To an actual vision of what it means to be an American. You are a thoughtful man. Okay, I am here because you are not shackled by some party's orthodoxy.
Plainly.
Or and anything. And I'm glad that we've done it twice over the last few years, and you've read some of my books, and I've read a lot of your work, and there's so much that we could be delving into. This question of, is there a role for the village elder or not? Interesting. Is there a common thread that unites this country or not? I mean, I think that's the most important question of our time. There's room for debate on it. You could just say we're a bunch of two-legged higher mammals with different shades of melanin walk in this geographic space and do what our iPhones tell us to do on a given day. Is that the country, or is there some set of still remaining ideals that bind us together? That is the conversation that I think we need to have in this country. And yet I'm worried the same thing is going to happen next week on the Republican debate stage that's happening right here, is we are suffering a form of derangement about the recent past that at some point we are all going to have to say we lay down arms and ask ourselves, do we actually want to move forward, or do we actually just want a national divorce?
Yeah. And
do you want the divorce and just be done with it and go home and call it a ball game?
That sounds more like Obama. That was Obama. Let's move forward. Yes.
I don't want to sort of I deeply disagree with Obama on many things, but I know you mean that in a good way, but let us move forward as one nation. And that's the challenge. We live in a more challenging time than we did even in 2008. And so let me just ask you, do you believe, Bill, that there exists? I have friends who would give me the answer to this question. The answer they would give is no. And that we need to get a national divorce and move on with it. I have friends both on the right and the left who say this, which is saddening to me.
This talk has to stop.
It is saddening to me.
Right. No,
deeply saddening.
We agree on that.
And so then what is that common thread that unites us? What is it? We think it exists. Let's talk about it. Meritocracy, the thing that my parents came here to pursue.
But that doesn't unite us anymore.
I think it unites most people, but if you're viewing this country through the prism of a TV screen or social media algorithm,
but the people
then
who
it
watch,
looks like we don't.
The people who watch MSNBC,
which aren't very many, which is a good thing.
Okay,
actually.
But they vote and they.
But this is an important point. That's my whole point. Is it's a small
it's
sliver of the population that creates the image of an artificial division that I think is mostly artificial.
But
I really do.
But we have to admit that this is what you're always railing against.
Yeah.
That is a powerful faction in this country,
I'm
And
kind
they
of done
do-
railing against it.
And you
though.
can't.
I'm in a different phase than when we first met.
Okay.
Because we
but-
had to see the problem and we did.
Okay.
Now, what are we running to?
Okay.
That's where
but
I'm
wait,
at.
those folks, you're assuming. I'm making a point of this because I think it's important. You're assuming that this is going to unite us. Meritocracy. Yes, there was a time when everyone believed in meritocracy as the most important thing. But now, the other side, those people watching that network believe in something called equity. I'm sure it's in your book.
Mm-hmm.
And there are definitions of equity, which, of course, you would understand. Yes, absolutely, we should strive for that. And then there is a form of equity that rubs right up against meritocracy. I mean, this is colleges getting rid of
affirmative action.
Well, no, exams.
Oh, exams. Oh, you're saying the other direction.
Yes, I'm saying it's not about merit. We don't care what your score is.
So I think you're smoking out a good point. Group outcome equality, group outcome equity, and meritocracy are fundamentally incompatible.
They are at odds.
They're
yes.
I would say if you take both of them seriously to their natural limit, they're incompatible.
Well, that doesn't mean
other.
you can't have a mixture of two things, maybe not 50-50, but I mean, there needs to be redress.
But the point I was going to make for you is, from my perspective, is most people share one vision of that in this country. Enough people share. I think it's 50-50. I think it's easily 80-20 in the direction of people who believe in actual free speech, believe in meritocracy, believe in self-governance, right? The idea that at least Congress should make the laws and not three-letter agencies in Washington, D.C. I think most people believe that that's a good thing. That's what our founding fathers believed. I think, we may disagree on what the laws that Congress should make, but we agree that Congress should be the one making them.
When you put it vaguely like that, a poll of people would say, yes, we agree with that.
Like an overwhelming majority.
But then when you got to the specifics of threatening agencies.
Shutting down an F.B.I.
Or something like that.
So
and you know what? I'll give you that one. Not that I think we should necessarily do it.
I'm keeping 15,000 of the 35,000.
Your FBI idea is not as crazy as I thought. Okay? That's a win.
Can I give you the Department of Education for you too?
And also, the fact about 20,000 of them work in that one building in D.C., I didn't know that. See, when I get new information, I do. I process it, and I might change my mind. I don't think I'm all the way to let's get rid of the FBI.
Well, I would say,
but a streamlining certainly seems in order.
Let me just, if I said let's reorganize the FBI to put generalist agents into specialized functions in other bureaus in the federal government.
Right.
Okay. I think you would respond well to that.
Right.
That's effectively what my proposal is.
So do you talk about something like that in Iowa?
I talk about it in New Hampshire. I was at St. Anselm College. First time this ever happened. The prosecutor will unveil like a giant poster board. You've seen these things. So what we did is we took giant poster boards explaining, like literally boxes, moving them around for the FBI, the Department of Education, and then the Nuclear Regulatory Commission's one that I did as well. I mean, this is an agency whose culture is fundamentally hostile to the existence of nuclear energy in the United States of America. It used to be 3 to 4 years to build a new nuclear power plant in the United States. You know what it is now? 25 to 40 years.
I talk about this all the time.
You do? Okay.
Well, about like the fact that nothing gets done in this country because these just obscene levels of graft and bureaucracy. Red tape. We can't build housing for the homeless.
It's totally right, though, because bureaucracy stops new housing construction. It is the chokehold in our country. So the premise of I have two premises.
If you could get through
I'm
that.
the anti-bureaucracy candidate. 70, but you can't be scared when I say things like, I want to fire 75% of the federal employee headcount. I just do. Most organizations.
I mean,
think of your organization.
Government is
90% of the people, 25% of the people do 90% of the work.
No,
That's the answer.
No, my operation is lean.
Okay, fine. It's not the federal government.
They're all good.
In the federal government, 25% of the people do 90% of the work.
Because the federal government, of course, does not have to answer to anybody.
And there's no meritocracy.
Right.
Because they have these civil service protections.
There is at certain levels.
Minimal.
And look, there is a lot. I don't know, this number.
And so if you're anti-bureaucracy with me, join me in not being scared when I say the things that we need to do to fix it.
No, what I'll say is this. The figure you come up with, 75%, is what I would call rectum derived. In other words, you pulled it out of your ass. So I don't know where we're getting that number. But I will say this. the federal government, the deep state that you're also paranoid
Oh,
about.
the deep state exists. It's the bureaucracy.
Of course it does.
It is
And-
the bureaucracy.
Right, and most of it is people processing forms and issuing passports and doing things that make the lives of citizens
And this
feel
is
like
how-
they're living not in a third world country.
And
where-
this is how a nation ends, not with a bang, but with a
Really?
whimper.
This
With
is how a
whimper.
nation ends, with having my
whimper.
passport processed?
So here's my litmus
Yeah,
test.
that's how a
If
nation-
George Washington, I think so.
But
George
but
Washington,
you would agree we need-
Alexander Hamilton walk in the streets of this country today, would they be proud or appalled of that bureaucracy? I think they would be appalled because they never imagined
I agree.
that existed,
The
right?
Department of Homeland Security is a monstrosity.
Disaster.
Right.
Total
I
disaster.
know. But there is also
The
a need
CDC
for an
is a disaster. The
Oh,
FDA
we're all
is
on-
a disaster.
Absolutely.
Right,
The
so-
what one?
The FDA.
The FDA.
The FDA is a
Totally.
is a
Yes,
colossal disaster.
of course.
And I've dealt with the FDA. I've gotten 5 medicines approved
Yes.
that I've worked on that are now approved.
Right.
I
You
can
know
speak
that one from
first
the
personally.
inside, right?
We could have developed those at a tiny fraction of the cost. And you know what? Who likes the FDA?
and you didn't because of
Because
government?
the FDA.
The
100%.
FDA.
Because of the frickin' drug administration. And the answer
Oh.
is that Big Pharma wants to keep it that way because that stops new upstarts from bringing competition to market. And so this is the private-public sector. It's not a
Yeah.
Republican problem or a Democrat problem. It's crony capitalism in the guise of
But
bureaucracy,
how the heck
using it to stifle competition in the market.
I couldn't agree more. But I mean, all the people with their snouts at the trough, the reason why nothing gets done, we tried to build high-speed rail
Yeah,
here in California. I mean,
lobbying. Disaster.
it was 7 times the cost of what it would cost to build it in France, which is not exactly unknown
Too high cost.
to
unions.
labor
Yeah. Yes.
rights issues. And so
Funny thing is,
finally they
France is
just
making us look bad. Even nuclear
just
power
gave
plants,
up.
same thing. They just give up.
You know
nuclear
what?
power plants in France, 5 to 8 years,
because
20 years
the
in this
money
country.
went to consultants.
Yeah.
Everybody needs so many consultants. Like nobody could even fucking know how to do their own job. They have to have somebody consult.
This is it. You and I are on the
No,
same side of this,
we're
brother.
definitely on that.
But this
so
is the
much of
heart
the-
of my camp. So when you say deep state, don't say it so like condescendingly.
Well,
Understand that this is actually the
Okay,
essence
but-
of the real threat to liberty as it plays itself
but
out.
let's say
and
you're
economy, and
okay.
merit.
So let's say you're 75%, which is a pie in the sky wish that'll never come true anyway. So
Oh, it's going to come true. I'll tell you.
not to that number. Let's say it's maybe you're off by maybe your numbers in your head are just off by a little bit. So let's say we get to 50%. Like we don't need half the government. That could be true. That absolutely could be true.
And I've said half by the first year. And so if we discover that's good enough, then great. But here's where I'm at, is that the U.S. president is elected to run the executive branch of the government. And what we have today is a system where the person who we elect to run the executive branch of the government doesn't actually run the executive branch of the government.
That's ridiculous.
I mean, it's just the truth.
How do you know?
I mean, look at what they try to do. I mean, Trump says, I want to fire people. What did they tell him? You can't fire them because there's civil service protections. The law says
I
you
thought
can't
we were
fire
talking
someone.
about Biden.
Well, I'm saying in the last 50 years in this country, the people who we elect to run the government don't actually run the government. That's just a fact. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, John Jay,
So
if they walk around Washington, D.C. today, they say these are puppets.
Well, who was running the government?
A bureaucratic machine. The laws aren't made even in the
Okay.
halls of Congress. The person executing the law is
Well-
not the person sitting in the White House. It is a managerial machine.
Okay,
and these are good. I'm not
I mean, it's
conspiratorial
just,
about the
you know,
evil intentions.
see-
These are good people at this level of individuals.
Vivek, you
but
know,
the machine
You have a good
is
point.
really what's crushing the will of the people.
This is where I think we need a few more years on you. You have a good point, but then you're just so overstated.
I'm not overstating it, Bill.
Say it again.
So the people who we elect to run the government,
Yeah, okay.
they're not the ones who actually run the government.
That's such an
The
overstatement.
laws are not made in Congress.
They are
They're
made in
by the
Congress.
administrative
They're
state.
affected by the bureaucratic
That's what it's supposed
state.
to be. That's what it's supposed to be.
Oh, come on.
So I'll tell you. So just get
You're
into the
making
details. You got to get into the
It's a
details.
ridiculous thing to say.
The things that the FDA does have nothing to do with the law that Congress has passed. The things the EPA does to the coal industry have nothing to do, or the fossil fuel industry, have nothing to do with laws that Congress has passed. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the reason we don't have a new nuclear power plant in this country in 30 years has nothing to do with Congress stopping it. So if you tell the people of this country we don't have new nuclear energy for 30 years, you'd say, oh, well, the people we elect them out. It doesn't matter who you elect in or out. The fact has been the same for 30 years regardless. Because the real laws are made by the administrative state.
Okay, but you must know, and I'm with you, that we need more nuclear energy.
Yeah. And the reason we don't, it's not going to change because Congress passes a law.
The reason we don't is because people are, I think, look, I'm not going to say they're ignorant about this issue because, look, I've been on the fence about this one before. It's a complex issue. But I don't think they're paying too much attention to the idea that, yes, until we get to real green energy being the major part of our where we get our energy from, you're going to need nuclear. It's better than the other alternatives.
Yes, it's way better than the other alternatives.
I mean, the problem is when it goes bad, it goes very bad. It goes like end the world bad. Not so far that bad, but it could.
So you know what the irony is?
So don't fuck it up.
Well, you know what the irony is? So the NRC, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission that's stopping us from building new nuclear power plants, is in the name of safety. So in the United States right now, we have Gen 1 and Gen 2 reactors. We don't really have many Gen 3 and we have no Gen 4. The only country with a Gen 4 reactor is China. Gen 4 and Gen 3 are way safer than Gen 1 and Gen 2. And so the irony is in the name of looking after the people and protecting them. We actually have neither helped on innovation nor have helped on safety. And then the FDA, by the way, is the same story. And so, Bill, all I would say is if you agree with me on this, you've got to be willing to actually gut
Yes, and I'm telling you, I am a great focus group for you because I am a because I am a guy who is sympathetic to a lot of the things.
I appreciate that.
You're right. But then...
So then let's roll this one forward.
Even when you're on the 2-yard line, you fuck it up.
Let's roll this one forward, Bill. Maybe right now, because we have no points on the board, maybe we just kick a field goal. And what do I mean by that? What do I mean by that? It means you don't have to agree with 100% or close to 100%.
Totally.
In order to just say half the job of a U.S. president is character.
No, that's true. But it's got to be more than 4.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. No, I do. Again, this is serious.
But I think it is more than 4 between you and I. That's my point.
I am a good focus group for you because I am a gettable guy.
80% of this country is, by the way.
But there are
you represent 80. You represent closer to the majority of the Democrat base than the people who are elected in office.
And a lot of
it comes down to the actual people.
A lot of us have to know that you're an actual patriot who believes in what America has always stood for, which is votes count.
I do.
We transfer power peacefully. We don't let a sore loser pretending to be some macho man cry that he cannot believe he lost the election.
I'm going to give you one that you and I will agree with potentially here.
I know you can't say it because you want to be his vice president.
I do not want to be his vice president, Bill. I already told you.
Well, okay, but maybe you'll change.
Honestly, the idea of working for somebody right now feels like a sharp poke in the eye. Like right now, that's the sensation I'm experiencing. I have not reported to somebody in over a decade. I know. And I just don't do well in that role.
But can I just say something on a personal level?
I got to tell you one thing.
And to help, I like you. I want to help you.
I like you back, brother.
I know, and I appreciate you making time to come in. I know, I appreciate it. And you are going to go a lot further. You're not at your floor.
Oh, we're just getting warmed up. Yeah, I think.
No, because first of all, you're going to appeal to young men, and young men tend right. I think that's the hardest people to get in the voting booth. They see a guy who looks like you, again, not rapping, but look, you dress sharp, you look like you could be at a club.
This is, what do they call this? Club Random we're at.
Right, we're at Club, exactly.
So we literally are at a Club Random.
Club. And they're going to see this guy who's young and he's fresh, and of course they don't know anything, the kids. So like if you say get rid of the I.R.S, they're like, sure, I'm going to pay taxes one day. That's going to suck. Let's get rid of them. And just stuff that like, you're like a good version of Andrew Tate. They're just going to like you, and that I think you could excite a group of people that we haven't seen.
We want to bring young people along,
right,
to care about this country.
Well,
I want to make patriotism cool again for young people. I want to
Yes.
make patriotism
I
as a
think you
concept
can.
cool in this country.
And
You don't
by
have to
the
be
way-
ashamed of the American flag.
I hope this isn't.
cool.
I hope this isn't too personal, but I mean it in the best possible way. I think the fact that you are who you are, again, if we could just get rid of a little of the Trump stuff, and that you are a person of color is an advantage. I think it is the right moment. I think it's happening in the right party, a party that is very sort of, they know that in the past, in the recent past, including sometimes the present, they are racist, and they have been. I mean, Reagan started his campaign in Philadelphia, Mississippi, which was a undeniable signal that he was okay with race.
Here's my situation.
But they're better than they were, and the fact that they like you, and I think they're going to like you a lot more. I mean, they're just getting to know you.
The people didn't know me like 6 months ago.
Right.
So here's the thing.
I think they're better than they used to be, but there's still a lot of racists.
I think that
in that party.
I think there's a lot of. I mean, what do you call racism when you say you want? I mean, I'll give you a quote. The remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination. The remedy to present discrimination is future discrimination. That's racism too.
That's Kendi.
It's Kendi. You know it. You're all over it. So
yes. Not down with that.
Look, if you're like a psychologist and you got a patient that comes in with anxiety, you don't shut them down by saying, "Don't be anxious, don't be anxious, don't be anxious."
Right.
They're going to have a bout of anxiety. I think where we are in this country with respect to racism, I'll use an analogy based on you lighting that and watching that, taper out, is it's like the last burning embers of racism. That's where we are, actually. I'm serious. I'm just a visual person.
All right, I'll vote for you.
It's the last.
You got me with that one.
It really is. And so what I don't want to do is, right as that's burning out, I don't want to come in and throw kerosene on it by saying, "Don't be racist." That's what we'd be doing. And so we're almost at the promised land. But
we may not be that close, but we are way.
We're a hair's trigger away from a national revival. We can be. It's not going to happen automatically.
You like my slogan? Let's live in the year we're living in.
I'm
right?
with you on that.
Isn't that great?
I'm with you on that.
Let's live in the year. That's all I ask.
And you know what else I'm going to do in this election is I promised some people I'm going to meet them as you know. So I got to probably roll pretty soon. But this is too fun for me. But here's the thing I will say in this election: if I'm the nominee, and whoever the Democrat nominee is, Joe Biden or anybody else, I'll make a deal. The deal is shun super PAC money, and I will do the same thing. And I'll make the same deal in the Republican primary. Right now, in the Republican primary, a big part of the problem is it's a super PAC primary. I mean, super PAC puppets, one after the other. I'm not playing that game. I'm putting my own money directly into the campaign.
I can't wait to see the debate
but this
you and Christie and Trump.
And we're going to, okay, well, that's not going to be next week.
No,
it
not
could
next.
be in a couple months, though.
I know, but you're in for sure.
Oh, I'm in for sure,
Because you're like number 2 or 3.
Yeah.
So, and DeSantis. This is like must-see TV.
It's going to be kind of fun, right?
No, because like these guys are going to know they're in with a guy who can talk and think on his feet. I mean, we're
going to have fun.
We're
going to have fun.
Look.
But what I would say is across the board, laws are complicated on this and Citizens United, this and that. But if we do a handshake deal and say none of us are going to show up at fundraisers with super PACs or anything else, we're just done playing that game. That's another thing that will unite this country. This used to be a left-wing slogan. I think the right has a mood for this right now. So there's these.
We tried this a million times. Let's get money out
via the law.
Let's get
what
money.
I'm saying is let's actually do it through our norms.
Oh.
In our practice, because the laws are complicated because of the First Amendment and the court, et cetera. But this election, that's something I will hold my promise to if the other candidates do. In the GOP primary, if everybody just agrees as a handshake agreement, we're just going to shun super PACs. And then I do the same thing in the general. So this is the stuff of uniting a country, man.
So where are you off to? When is your next event? Now you came from Iowa. I mean, you flew.
I'm like all over I've been in like 6 states in the last 72 hours. No, 72 hours. But we're we got the debate next week, and it's my first
debate?
Time. The Republican debate.
That's next week.
First one's next Wednesday. A week from today.
Is Trump in? Trump
is in, but he won't show up. Or he's supposedly not going to show up. But everybody else is. So DeSantis, myself, Pence, Nikki Haley, Tim Scott, all that. Christie. Yeah, he's in too. So that'll be fun.
You and he, that's going to be the debate. Because He's the one who talks like I do about Trump now.
Yeah, you know him? I haven't met him in
No,
person.
but Christie is a Trump attacker,
Yeah.
and you're a Trump defender. It's going to be.
We'll have a healthy
interesting.
dialogue. Let's say
No,
that.
no. I mean, you're up against the champ there. As far as like a politician who can talk, he also can talk and think on his feet. So
I'm a first timer. He's experienced.
Take
Let's
your-
see how.
take your
Let's
ginseng
get
that
ready
night.
to roll, man. Yeah.
all
Thank you,
right.
man. It was good seeing you as
Yeah,
always.
too.
I
I'm
enjoyed it.
glad that we can do this, not agree on everything, and we're still where we were.
We love
And
each
you'll-
other
you'll-
and we love this
thank-
country.
Exactly.
And like that's what America's about. So
Okay.
I appreciate that, brother.
Good luck out there.
Club Random.
Now, are you going to a
This is fun.
fundraiser now?
We're going to a dinner. It's not formally a fundraiser.
Yeah, but you'll take their money if they
Yeah.
offer it, huh?
Yeah, I'm just not going to be a circus monkey jumping for it.
Boy, if I had
but
your
they-
money, I'd throw mine away.